Today I want to talk about the topic of how to recover from the process of divorce. Last video that I did was how to recover from the decision, how to heal from the decision of divorce. Now here's why this is important. First of all, this is too large a topic to cover in this one video. So I'm gonna make several videos on this topic. But today I want to talk to you about the process of divorce. Once you're engaged in the process, how can you as an achiever recover without losing your great qualities? So here's the 4 pain points I'm going to discuss and how to handle them. It's isolation, loneliness, failure, and uncertainty. But before I get into that, let me give you a little real quick backstory. Years ago, 2015, this is before I wrote my first book. This is before my good friend, who was an achiever, an outstanding leader, took his life in 2018. That didn't start till 2018. So in 2015, from 2010, I decided after 20 years my marriage was not going to work. Actually, 2018, 2010, I'd been married 20 years, separated from my wife, my children's mother, and was trying to do things in a way that was amicable and be friends and not, do that. And I discussed that in the last video. But during that time, I was back on the marketplace. And keep in mind, I was not on the marketplace before. I got married when I was 24. So being back on the marketplace, actually going out at night, meeting females, dating females was new to me. But by 2014, 2015, I'd gotten accustomed to it, right? So I'm in a dark space mentally. I know I'm in a dark space, but not knowing how to move through it. And it wasn't until my good friend took his life in 2018 that I began to map back to see exactly all the stages that I went through and how I could compress recovery time. That's what my first book was based on. But by 2018, I'm at the end of actually recovering. It took me 8.5 to 9 years to recover. And that time period cost me about $3 million to be conservative. And that's not an exaggeration. So, backstory. So I'm out in the middle of the night at this, it's not really a club, it's a lounge club if you want to call it that a buddy of mine that I knew from the gym, had known him for years. We knew the owner. So we're out in the middle of the night. And I see this attractive woman there, and but she's not dressed like the other females dressed. She's dressed, to her she was dressed sexy, but to me she was dressed modestly. So long story short, I approach her, we dance a little bit, I get her number, we start communicating and talking. The very first conversation I have with her, she explains to me some of her religious beliefs, and that she is separated from her husband, and that she has a son. And as she's explaining, I immediately know exactly where she's at. I'm familiar with the religion that she's in. And I say to her, you just got out here in the marketplace, and it's not a good place for you to be. Now, I says, now I'm in a dark space, but I don't want you to be here. I had always had the care and concern to prevent others from experiencing what I was going through, right? I had been in the darkness so long I could see the light in the darkness. And I said to her, are you sure that you want to go through this process of divorce and go through that darkness? And she said, yeah, absolutely. She was sure. Her husband at the time was, hadn't been involved with her, spent time with her in 2 or 3 months. He was out and about doing, out and traveling here and traveling there. And I said to her, he's not traveling. He has someone else, but he's just not disclosing it to you yet. And I said to her, if you don't go through this process of divorce quickly and maintain your great qualities, you're going to slide into a darkness and become a person that you don't like. You're going to become a person that will be so detached from who I see you as right now, the good qualities that I see that you have. I'm going to tell you now, you're going to lose them. So be careful. And that's what I said to her. The other thing I said to her is, because we were talking, communicating, I said, I will know when you're recovered, when you move forward. And here's what I said to her: when you cut me loose, then I'll know. So go through the process of divorce, go, adjust to the changes that you decide to make as you separate, go your separate ways, and move forward, and don't forget the qualities that make you who you are. So that was kind of a concise piece of the story. I'm gonna finish the story up at the end. So I wanna go through these 4 things with you. It's isolation, loneliness, failure, and uncertainty. As you go through the process of divorce, the reason why I want to share these with you so that you can avoid some of the deep pain that I experienced from not knowing in advance. So let's start with isolation. Isolation is necessary to heal. Let's start there. Because if you don't realize it's necessary to heal, then we'll run from it. But there's balance there. The balance is you don't want to isolate so much that we become self-absorbed and then give in to distorted thinking, right? Because the person that spends too much time alone is led to their own self-contained thinking. The other is that we need to isolate enough to heal. So running away from feeling isolated by going out in the middle of the night and by dating this person and dating that person, it feeds your ego, but it doesn't help you heal. That's the first thing. Isolation will be necessary, keep it balanced. Number 2, loneliness. It is a natural emotion to feel loneliness at times. Don't run from that either. Why? Because if you've been married for any period of time, if you are an achiever, and hopefully that's who you are, because what I'm saying only applies to achievers, leaders. I don't really comprehend those that accept failure as a regular part of their life. There is no loneliness like being with the wrong person. There is none. Someone who is neglectful, contentious, argumentative, controlling, unloving, toxic, dark. There is no loneliness that matches that. You're with someone, but you always feel alone. So the loneliness component of going through the process of divorce is natural, but to be able to move through it quickly, we have to compare it to that, which I just shared with you. That's loneliness. Number 3 is failure. As an achiever, we are accustomed to failing our way to success in small areas. If it's something that's mental, business, something that we need to do, we'll fail our way on to succeeding. That's part of the learning process. But when we fail in an area of our life that our ideals, values, and beliefs is based on, that failure should not be minimized, which is what we're inclined to do. And you have to realize that failing in marriage is major. It's not just some small thing. It's not just some minor thing that you failed at. And if you allow it to last too long, it can be a painful life event. If you drag it out longer, it can become a traumatic life event for you, because guilt will kick in sooner or later, even though you did your absolute best. If you become angry negatively and let that last too long, you begin to feel guilty about that. So understand that the failure in this space is new to you, and you have to be able to adjust to it. Here's the last component, that is uncertainty. Sometimes it's easier to stay where we know what we know. But if you're going through the process of divorce, there is uncertainty in front of you, but there's also uncertainty behind you, right? You were certain that you didn't know whether the person that was your mate will be in a positive mood, a negative mood, argumentative mood, cooperative mood. You don't know. So the uncertainty that's in front of you is unavoidable. However, you can decide where you want to be in the future, and then each step that you decide to take, consider whether that's the best step for you to take at that time, even though you don't know what the result's going to be. So what we want to avoid is the fear of uncertainty, and that holds you back. Or we go to the other extreme and deliberately engage in activities that make things exciting. Going out in the middle of the night, hanging out with your friends all the time, doing things that help us to avoid the fact that we need to adjust to the process that we're going through, which is very painful, which is the process of divorce. So those 4 things: isolation, loneliness, failure, and uncertainty, right? Adjust to that, spend your time adjusting to that, think clearly through that, understand the emotions of that when you're going through the process of divorce. So back to my original story. Here's what happened with the young woman at the time that I was dating. So she went through the process of divorce. Her husband was so combative, disrespectful, and wore her down to the extent that, and when it came to, custody of their only son, she gave him custody. She had to refinance the house to get his name off the title, so she paid him his share. He moved out, got his own place, moved on with the woman that he was involved with, and, acted like nothing was wrong, right? In their religion, presented himself as if he was the righteous one. Of course, he was dismissed from the religion, but he went through the technicalities of that. And so what she's watching is that. And what began to happen is that she became very bitter about being on the receiving end of mistreatment. And that then caused her to begin to change who she was, to change how she viewed relationships, change how she viewed herself, because she was out and about, dating and things like that. And in the end, as she was hanging out and drinking here, and I had, left that space, right? I had, not moved on, but I had left that space of going out all the time. It was just, I was in such a dark place that I left that space. I was working 7 days a week at the time as well. Drinking consistently to the point that she got sick. She began to have liver problems, right? So running away from facing where you are does not work to your benefit. And of course, I saw her from time to time after that because we became friends, well, close friends, and I would see her weight go up and her weight go down. And I would say to her, I says, you have to return to your religious beliefs because that's all you know. Yes, you feel you're being mistreated, but you're absorbing all of it. And that's changing who you are. And so the pain that you feel is only going to get worse because what you have is righteous indignation, which is acceptable. That's something that we can have, but it doesn't help you long term. So as you go through the process of divorce, and hopefully, if you're listening to this and watch this up to this point, something that I've shared with you will help you avoid the pain points. It'll help you move to the point that you accept where you will be for a short period of time, go through it, compress that time, and then move forward. All right? Isolation, loneliness, failure, right? Don't be too hard on yourself, and uncertainty. Move forward. Why? Because you are a great person. You did your absolute best. You deserve better, and in due time, you will have healed to the point of being able to accept someone else into your life that deserves what you've mastered giving to have and to build and enjoy a good relationship, a positive relationship, something that will make your life happier, help you to move forward. That's this video. The next video that I do on this topic of divorce will cover what I learned and the stages that we all have to go through when we recover from something that really is a traumatic life event. I'm going to discuss anger, guilt, and depression, that part of the map. That's what I call the shock phase. The 3 stages of the shock phase is anger, guilt, and depression. So I'll discuss that in detail with you on the next video. But for now, keep these 4 pain points in mind. They're natural, they're normal, move them quickly, embrace them. Learn to grow through the pain that you're going through. Will reduce the pain, will mitigate the pain, but also will have it as a learning lesson so you can search for and attract the person that you deserve. Until next time, wish you all the blessings and success you deserve.